Thank you, Olivia. Hi, everyone. I'm Luis Garcia with Media Garcia. Very excited to be with you all here today and looking forward to diving into our topic around growing your business with the CRM. Our today will be, I'll go through a brief introduction on myself, and then I'm going to introduce revenue operations or speak about this relatively new industry term. So you might not be super familiar with what revenue operations or RevOps shortened is. And so we'll talk a little bit about that and how that ties into how we're going to grow our business. And then we'll dig into CRM or customer relationship management fundamentals and really examine what's the purpose of the CRM, how is it supposed to fit inside a business, what does it do, its features, its benefits, as well as using then tying it all together is how do we use a CRM and these tools to drive revenue operations or drive our way to wealth, right, inside our business. And then we'll also have time for Q&A at the end. The presentation probably will take anywhere between 50 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on how many questions you ask, which I do definitely encourage you to ask lots of questions in the chat. And Olivia and I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A features. So feel free to use those to ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. But in the meantime, if you want to warm up your fingers and maybe just go into the chat and just let us know, who you are, your role, and your business. And it could be your name or maybe your industry. And what brought you here today, right? I want to make sure that I make this presentation very relevant to you, so it helps me best understand who's in the audience and what kind of business you're running. Are you using a CRM today? Maybe which one you're using, and then if you have any specific things you're looking to hope to get out of this presentation today. So any whatever compelled you to come today, it's great that you're here, and I just want to make sure that you get the value out of this and out of our time here today. So let's get into it. All right. So a little bit about myself. So I'm the founder and CEO of Media Garcia. It's a company I started as a side business 14 years ago while I was working at Target Corporation. I had learned how to code, and so I started making websites for local small businesses. And I spent about 14 years at Target, and about 8 years ago, I ended my career there and transitioned from my side business to now my full-time business, and have been growing it since then. And in the midst of all that, we transformed from a web development company to a growth agency that works with companies on their revenue operations, which we'll get to in just a second. I have my bachelor's in information technology management from Concordia University, St. Paul. Father to two awesome kids who are just back to school today. Parents in the room, right? Raise the roof. Get a little time back. And oh yeah, I'm gonna have to update my 11 years at a Fortune 50 because I actually spent more years on that. Okay, anyways, I have a big background in information technology and business intelligence, and in my free time, I enjoy camping, fishing, and gaming. So those are my kind of my key things. Couple of photos that you see here on the slide is just me and my family, my mother, Disney, this last year actually. I also participate in a Latino lead organization, which is a Minnesota nonprofit focused on developing leadership within the Latino community. And there's me playing guitar at the cabin, which is where I'm at right now. And so very fortunate that they rolled out fiber optic here in the remote wilderness. And I hope they do that in more places because it just increases our accessibility here to tech. Here's my QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. And a couple other things that about myself, I'm huge into tech and a total nerd in this area. And so a couple of things I want to call out is that one, I do lead a HubSpot Platinum Solution Partner Agency. That just means that we've sold so much HubSpot and we support so many companies with their HubSpot platforms. HubSpot's one of the many CRMs in the marketplace. It's the one that I'm the most familiar with, but I've also worked with Salesforce, Zoho, Insightly, less annoying CRM, and there's even more, right? And we've seen in the marketplace a lot of new CRMs come up. There's a lot of industry specific CRMs. And then we've seen other tools adopt CRM strategies like MailChimp, which, was largely an email marketing tool, but you can kind of see that they're moving into the CRM market. So everyone's seen how important, especially after the pandemic, where so many teams had to work collaboratively and remotely. We're seeing the value in these tools that are starting to provide, especially now layering on AI to these things. We expect to see the CRM market to continue to grow quite a bit. I'm also a ClickUp verified power user. ClickUp's a project management tool, and we run like all of our agency operations out of this tool. So if kind of sum up my experience in these technologies and this platform simply, is that I can set up, integrate, connect, and automate these tools in a way that helps companies grow and run their operations with ease. All right, perfect. At Media Garcia, we help mission-driven companies scale faster and amplify their impact by streamlining RevOps, or revenue operations, across their marketing, sales, and service operations. So for just kind of curious, I want to get a pulse here. I actually have a bit of a study going on with one of my colleagues at my company who says, well, no one really knows what RevOps is. And so kind of curious, just for those in chat, just type RevOps yes or RevOps no. Like, have you ever heard of RevOps before, or revenue operations? Just to enlighten me. I'm kind of curious to hear, right? Okay. And good, right? I'm seeing a lot of no's, which is perfect. So here's a way to think about it, and I'm going to kind of boil it down to I think it's a newer industry term, and we see it a lot more in like mid cap enterprise companies that are usually more in like maybe the tech and SaaS space. And I think it's unequivocally no across the board, which is fantastic. I really appreciate that. But what I've learned and what I've kind of done also in my career at Target, is that I picked up these different types of frameworks and these different methodologies of doing things. And yeah, I get that, a reverend at a church. I appreciate that, Roger. So it's totally not that. We're not preaching here, but we're talking about revenue, right? And what RevOps is looking at how do we generate revenue across marketing, sales, and service, because they all, at the end of the day, are influencing how money comes into the business. Your marketing team, is generating leads, your sales team is closing those deals, and then your service teams are retaining those customers over the long period of time and trying to sell to them, right? Now I know that this is probably a more of a classic B2B, like if you're a business selling to other business example. RevOps might not apply as simply if like you're in the like e-commerce space. I mean, it still does, but it looks different. And so RevOps is about connecting data across marketing, sales, and service. Now, for many of you, you might actually be wearing all these hats, inside your business. I know what it's like to be the sole owner or on a very small team where you're doing the marketing, or you're trying to get those referrals or the networking, right? Or you're trying to do these email marketing campaigns. And then all of a sudden now you're wearing the sales hat, and now you're the salesperson. So now you have to take this lead that you just found and put them through the sales process, right? And then after you sell the deal, right, you have to make sure you deliver on what you promise and do it in a way that retains the customer and gives opportunities for upselling or cross-selling, and be able to continue to drive revenue out of those opportunities. So that's at a very high level what RevOps is. There are actually RevOps roles, or you might have like a director of revenue operations in these larger companies, right? And then you might have RevOps managers and analysts, and all they're doing all day for the most part is looking at where the friction and where the bottlenecks or the problems are inside of your revenue generating activities. So, are you having issues with generating leads, or are you having issues with closing the leads that you have, or are you having issues retaining the customers that you sold, right? All those bottlenecks and points of frictions and those road bumps, right, are going to make it more challenging for you to grow, to scale your business. And so that's what that at a high level is what revenue operation is. But for now, since most of us are going to be, on a, maybe solopreneurs or on a small team, just think of revenue operations as the way to streamline how money comes into the business and to remove all the bottlenecks and issues that might show up along the way. All right, moving on, folks. Let's see here. I actually want to go back and read a couple of these things here. We got Malay. Hopefully I said your name correctly. You work at 5x5 Design, a Minneapolis-based brand and marketing firm. We started using a CRM, likely, or you're starting to use a CRM, likely HubSpot. Okay, got it. So happy to answer any kind of HubSpot specific questions. And then Nicole with next steps, your an attendance tracking software. You're looking for a better understanding of how to use CRM day to day. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for all that, folks. It's really helpful to see where we're at in the room. Okay, going to prime us up with a couple of CRM stats. The global CRM market is poised to reach about 113 billion with a B by the end of 2027. And 65% of sales professionals use a CRM, and 97% consider sales technology very important or important. That's from LinkedIn. And then the last stat, 53% of top performing salespeople have a higher confidence level in their CRM data than their counterparts. So a couple of just, takeaways from here. One, the CRM market is growing. I kind of said it earlier in my introduction, but there's been a proliferation of CRM tools. And now that we have AI coming into the space, we're seeing a lot of AI powered CRM tools. So what does this mean? Right. It means for you, especially as a solopreneur or business that's on a small team, like the CRM space is becoming a more level playing field, right? You'll be able to compete more easily with competitors and even upmarket competitors who maybe are using these tools or have a larger team. You get to level the playing field with CRM and with automations and AI because it's all the same tools that they're using. And when salespeople are using these tools, right, they have a higher degree of confidence and they see the importance of using these tools as well. So on a scale of 0 to 10, kind of another question for chat here, just go ahead and throw a number in chat. 0 being not confident and 10 being very confident. How confident are you in your CRM data? Now, today you might not have a CRM, but your CRM could be your Excel sheet, or it could be your head, or maybe you use like your email inbox or your voicemail box, right, as your CRM, right? Just wherever your customer data is, like your prospect customer data, like just in general. Do you have a high degree that it's good data, that it's complete, that it's like how you need it, that you can use it confidently and grow in your business? Lance, I see your question about who's winning. So I definitely lost that bet. So that regarding the will people know RevOps, I thought maybe there'd be a couple, but yeah, so I'm on the losing end of that, but not a problem. Just it's good data to know, right? It's good to run those experiments. All right, folks. So just kind of scanning results here. Looks like we're most of us, except for Hubert, at a 9. But it looks like most are, around the 2 to 3, area, right? So, and some don't have any data yet. It's too early. I see that, Roger. Yeah, too early in the business planning. So, so you might not have any information about your prospects or customers, right? In that sense, right? Definitely opportunity, right? So hopefully we can dig into it. But chances are, if you're not feeling very confident about your CRM data, you're probably, grappling with questions like this, like you're wanting to understand why your sales are down. Why are sales down 20% this month? Will I hit my revenue growth goals? That's a huge thing for people in like the revenue operations space and for business owners and sales executives and leaders is like they want to be able to build a pipeline in their CRM and say, yeah, you know what, I have 10,000 contacts. I have opportunities with 30 of these contacts. These are how big the opportunities are. This is when I expect them to close. And they want to be able to predict and forecast in the future, right? But if you don't have good data to do that and you don't have confidence in your data, you won't really be able to answer these questions. You won't have a lot of confidence in being able to stand behind the numbers that it might be telling you. Also, another common thing, right, when starting a business out, you might be wondering, is this campaign really working, right? Sometimes, we do a lot of things. So we might try networking and referrals, and then we decide to do an email campaign, and let's share it on social, and we start doing all these different kind of things and different messagings and targeting approaches, but without the attribution, the data to fuel where did these people come from? Did they convert on this email? Did they convert on this ad? Did I meet this person at a networking event? When we don't use a CRM, being able to answer these questions becomes really difficult. It becomes a nightmare manual activity, right? So that's where having a CRM in place will support you in your attribution and measurement and performance of your marketing campaigns to say, oh yeah, we ran this campaign and we got 10 leads and we closed on 2 of them, right? And then lastly, like, what is working, what is not working? I mean, that's another key thing, especially as we're looking at our go-to-market strategies and as we're starting out with a business, and maybe we haven't tapped into a specific lead channel or place that we can reliably get leads. This often plagues owners who are getting most of their leads and their opportunities through their personal network, right? And then they try to do other things, like they try to do some email marketing or social media marketing, or maybe some search engine optimization to get leads to their website, but they don't really know what's working or what's not working, because maybe they haven't seen enough results, or maybe they just haven't done enough to see to get enough evidence to say whether something is working or not. So you end up like this confused, concerned CEO, right, who's got the hands in the air. And this is where the CRM can come in and support. So let's look at, the couple of revenue formulas. First is going to be this customer formula on the left-hand side here, and then there's a revenue formula. So the customer formula is looking at, how many leads come into your business, and then we multiply that by your conversion rate or your effective conversion rate. That becomes what your customers is, right? So that's the customer formula. Now, marketing leads could be, people that you met through networking, could be people who downloaded something on your website, filled out a contact form, or maybe they filled in a LinkedIn ad that you put out there, right? Wherever you're generating your leads from, right, is that bucket of new contacts who are potential opportunities, right? And then so we look at how many leads did you generate, what's the conversion rate of those that you've generated, and then that becomes your customers. Then on the other side of that is the revenue formula, which is, well, if we take how many customers you have, then we look at how many average sales in it do they have. So is that average sale ticket? So is this is this a $10,000 service, or is it a $20 a month software package, right? You take your customers times how much they're going to spend through their average sales, and then how many sales per period. So this is going to be for businesses that, if they have to repurchase. So if it's like a monthly software, then you might say, well, they're going to buy 12 times in a year. Or if it's just a one-time purchase, then you might only have 1 sales per period. That becomes your revenue, right? And I think we have a couple of examples here that we'll get to in just a second. So I like this diagram. I wonder if I can zoom in on this guy. Let's see here. Okay, good, yeah. So when we think about, went too high. When we think about revenue operations, it's kind of like this big system, right? And so this was a diagram that was created in '95 by George Dawson, who wanted to illustrate what a cash flow system looks like for a business. And I really liked this because it shows that it's not really straightforward. It's not simple stuff, right? You can see that there's, I'll walk through aspects of this. I won't go through it all completely, but most of the time when we're starting our business, right, we're leaning on our customers to give us sales, and so customers are on this cloud, right, and they rain down money on us, and we collect it in our sales bucket, right. Now there are other ways to inject equity into the business, right? We can either take on debt through lenders, or we can take sell equity through investors, right? And so sales come in, but then we have all these different kind of valves and these leaky points where for example, we might sell on credit, which means now we have accounts receivable, but some of that accounts receivable will turn into bad debt because we might not get paid on it. And then, as money starts to flow through your system, you have different valves like collections, right? I know as a business owner, I hated doing collections, right? I like if someone owed me money, I'd rather it took me forever to find someone else to be like, go get the money for me, please, right? But that's a huge thing about your revenue operations is if you are inefficient or, you're not going out and asking for the money that's owed for you, or if it's, late or whatever, right? Like, this is the valve, right, that you might want to turn. And the CRM can support us with that because we can look at like how to maybe trigger notifications to reach out to people to pay or follow up, etc. But then all this money starts kind of flowing into our business, but then a big portion of it has to get paid out through accounts payable. And then we have all these different departments we need to account for, right? We gotta be selling, right? Which is a leak. There's administrative stuff we have to do in our business. There's general things. There's taxes. There's you have to pay your debt back, right? All these things, right? Over time, start to uh, drain, the available cash, from your business. And so this is where looking at revenue operations becomes more important because we have to look at, and more particularly for the purpose of our conversation, we're just looking at like how do we just turn customers into sales, right? And keep them there, right? And retain them there. And because we know that further downstream, there's a lot of things that you have to consider for as a business owner. Right. Oh yeah, by the way, this is what the profit looks like at the end of the day, right? Like we all want to make that profit, but this is the excess cash from profitable operations, right? Which is like a sprinkle, right? So hopefully we can make this like a garden hose rather than just like a sprinkle hose. And because but this is the reality of running the business, right? A lot of cash comes in, a lot of cash goes out. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to pull the right levers and twist the right valves in the right way to make it efficient and profitable for ourselves. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so here's an example, but I think we have a relevant question here I want to pivot to from Nicole. So when evaluating marketing leads, how much time do you typically allow before determining whether a lead is effective or it's time to pivot and pursue a different opportunity? Yeah, this is really great. Great question. And it's difficult to say, but what I would say when evaluating a marketing lead, there's a concept called lead scoring that we often lean on, where we would actually score a lead and say, what are the different kind of characteristics of your ideal buyer, right? And for example, we at Media Garcia, I like SaaS companies who are funded, right? So maybe they've received some funding and they're like in a Series B, Series C, so they have money. They're in a high growth mode. They value growth. They want to grow. They're in a state of flux, so they know things are changing. So they're willing, they're okay to change, right? They're not like change resistant usually. And so those are really good qualities for me. So when I'm looking and evaluating my prospects, I might look and say, okay, are you in the SaaS industry? Are you funded? What's your job title? Like, is this person in a job title that is someone who is appropriate for me, right? Like, which would usually be like a chief marketing officer or a director of sales, maybe chief operating officer, sometimes a CEO. Kind of depends on the size of the company. It might be a CEO at a smaller business, but in a mid-cap company, it might not be. The CEO is probably inaccessible at a $50 million company. For a business like mine, we would instead probably be working with like a VP of marketing or a director of sales in that respect. And so I would develop different scoring mechanisms to say, okay, well, if you're in a SaaS field, you get 10 points. If you're a chief marketing officer, you get 10 points. If you're a funded business, 10 points, right? And then you might determine a certain threshold, right? Well, this is going to help you prioritize your leads because then you're going to say, okay, well, I have 30 leads and prospects that I could potentially follow up with. Who should I follow up with? Well, score them, and based on factors that are positive, and you can also take away points based on factors that are negative. For example, I might not want to work with like nonprofits, for example. So if a nonprofit comes my way, I might say, like this is not a good fit, for our agency. So I might take away 10 points, right, in that respect. Or if it's like a entry level position, like someone like maybe a manager of sales or something like that, right? I might not try to value those types of things. So find different characteristics about your leads that you want to value or devalue, score them, and then they'll hopefully give you a bit of priority on who to reach out to, and also maybe setting a threshold to say they need to hit all these 3 things or these 4 things before I actually go and engage with that lead and consider it a viable opportunity. All right, cool. So hopefully that answered your question, Nicole. Um, Now let's get on to these examples of the customer formula and the revenue formula. So in this example, right, we have on this first line, we had 40 leads for this HVAC company. And then their effective conversion rate was 25%. So they're closing 25% of the leads that are coming into their pipeline, which means they would get, and this is all on a monthly basis, which means that they would get 10 customers from that. That's their customer formula. Now, if on average they're selling 4,500 a job, and they sell, one per period because they're an HVAC, so they're not like, selling numerous times, within a year. We would then get to 45,000 in their revenue, or if we annualize that number, that'd be just over $500,000. Now, this HVAC company wanted to develop a roadmap to double their sales, right? To go from just over $500,000 to $1 million in annual revenue. Well, one way of doing that, right, would be to just double your either marketing leads, maybe go from 40 to 80, right? And if all the other math stays the same, well, then you would be able to double your revenue. The other option might be to double your effective conversion rate, which would mean to, instead of closing a quarter of your deals, to close 50% of your deals, right? And by the same nature, you would be able to go to $1 million. Now, it might not be that practical or even possible to double any one of those numbers on their own. In some situations, some cases, you might be able to, and in others, you might not. For example, going from 25% win rate on your effective conversion rate to 50% might be it might be impractical, right? Again, that's where RevOps kind of comes into place. We kind of go in there and look and see, well, what's practical, what's possible, and start to experiment with different things to see what's going to actually drive revenue in the business. What's usually the case and what's usually more effective for folks is that you need to improve the state in multiple different places. And it's usually wherever it's the most leakiest, right? In the kind of the prior example of plumbing, if you look at your revenue as a system of plumbing, right, where are the leaks? Is the leaks in your marketing generation? Like, are you just, is this HVAC company maybe just, is there a lot of low hanging fruit for them potentially to double their lead count? If there is, then great. Maybe that is a viable approach. Or is there like, if they had a really leaky sales process and their conversion rate was 25%, but it was also really leaky, like as in, for example, like they didn't follow up with people in a timely manner, deals fell through the cracks because they weren't effectively using a CRM, so they lost track of who they were selling to, and so time went on, and when time goes on, sales start to diminish, right? That could be the case. But what's usually more realistic and practical for businesses is to try to influence it in different areas, right? And so in this case, we show how a 50% increase in marketing lead generation, and we'll talk about different approaches that this company took to do that. We could grow from 40 marketing leads per month to 60, right, by adding a net new of 20 marketing leads. Then if we were to increase our effective conversion rate by optimizing our sales process and having stronger follow-up and maybe automated follow-up, right, we could look for a 32% increase in their effective conversion rate, moving them from a 25% conversion rate to a 33% conversion rate. So not doubling either one of those factors, but actually improving each one incrementally, right? And so now they have 60 marketing leads and they're converting them at 33%, which means they get just shy of 20 customers. And we're keeping all the average sale price the same, right? keeping average sale price the same sales per period, now puts this company at over $1 million in annual revenue. And that's without even affecting their sales, right? They could potentially increase their average sales price by charging more, right? But then that's also likely going to maybe decrease their conversion rate, right? So these are all different levers, and to be able to that we can pull within our business to drive growth and revenue. All right. So now let's get into some of the tactics and things that are possible to, if we dissect each section of this formula to say, okay, well, what can be done in these areas to drive marketing leads, and how does a CRM support with that? First is your website, right? So if you're a business that gets leads or wants to get leads from your website, right, having a strong website with forms, call to actions, maybe like offers for ebooks and downloads, maybe webinars, right? All that information is great to have on your website. And by focusing on your website and through search engine optimization to drive more traffic to your website will result in more leads, coming through your websites. So that could be through your website. It could be through website landing pages that you design for like webinars or any kind of lead magnet, right? There's a lot of some call it lead magnets or funnels, right? We want to make sure we have funnels and lead magnets out there that are attracting people to the business. Also, social media, right, is great for building awareness. There's email marketing, advertising, whether that be through Google search or social advertising, like on LinkedIn, Facebook. If you're in a B2B space, right, LinkedIn is a gold mine, for advertising. It's also very expensive though, right? So you have to always kind of balance cost and an ROI with these activities. And then directories, so if you belong to like an association, or if your customers belong to an association or some sort of directory that you can tap into, those are also great places for marketing leads. And then events, right? So whether that would be a sponsoring event, or having a booth at an event, or even going to events where your customers are at and prospecting at those events. Those are all great ways to influence and generate marketing leads. Now, a CRM plays a huge role in all this, because a CRM is going to be your source of truth of all this information about your prospects. CRMs like HubSpot and many other ones, right, allow you to track different types of information that you're capturing about your marketing leads. So you can get information like, did they visit your website? Did they download some type of premium offer? That's typically what happens, right? And I'm sure we've all ourselves have gone to a website and we filled out a form, right? And then we got something, whether it be a PDF or a book or a white paper. Maybe we registered for a webinar, right? Whatever it was, at that point, you consented to giving your information up in exchange for some piece of value from that company that you downloaded it from, right? Now, if that company is being diligent with your information, they chances are they have it in their CRM, and they're able to see, what website pages you went to, what you've downloaded, what you've interacted with. And now they're going to probably start email marketing you. They're going to put you into a nurture campaign. I'm sure you've seen it, right? Where now you're starting to get emails, and you get one every day, or you get one every week, or however it might be. Usually it's some sort of welcome series that you're getting, right? All that's doing is it's nurturing you over time. That company maybe hasn't determined you yet as a good lead to follow up with for a sales opportunity, but they're waiting for you to engage and interact with their marketing campaigns enough to be able to say, oh yeah, this person's raising their hand. They are a good lead for us to follow up with. And so typically CRM is going to track that email marketing information and show you, did they open the email? Did they click on the email? Which links did they click in the email on, right? All that all that information becomes the breadcrumbs, that you can go back into your CRM and be able to say, oh yeah, here's all the things they interacted with. Also, if your CRM is integrated with your advertising campaigns, you typically will be able to see which contacts converted through different ads that you put out on your different platforms. So whether those be Google search ads or LinkedIn ads, right? CRM will show you that these leads came in through these ads. And depending on how, if you sent them to your website, right, typically you'll be able to see their interactions on your website as well. So are they what pages are they looking at? Where did they go? And events. a lot of B2B companies who are, showing up to events will sometimes, you'll see like if you go to an event or a trade show, there's like scan this QR code and blah, 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 right? Or put your name in this thing and we'll actually won a drone personally. I was at a conference recently and I won a drone, but like I had to give up my information, right? So we all had to like give information up and they were like, oh, we're gonna do a drawing at the end of the day or whatever kind of thing, and ended up winning this drone, which was amazing. But but I also got sales follow-up calls and emails from this company later, right? So these are just common tactics that B2B companies are using. So they're finding ways to exchange information, and from that pump it in their CRM, and now you have a breadcrumb trail, right, of how people are interacting, which becomes very, very valuable inside your revenue operations. All right, now I'm going to move on to effective conversion rate. So once these marketing leads come through the door, right, it's your marketing team typically will hand them off to your sales team, right? And there's in this process that we call the marketing to sales handoff. This is where marketing's generated a lead, and kind of going back to Nicole's question, which is how do we know if it's a good time to reach out to this person? That's usually when you would want to put your sales hat on or give this to a salesperson and say, hey, I think this lead's ready to be worked, right? And you want to have like a little bit of tension there, right? Because on one hand, you don't want to be the marketer or have your marketing hat on and give a bad lead to your salesperson. Bad lead meaning like maybe they just weren't ready, maybe they just subscribed to your newsletter, but they're not ready for a sales conversation, right? Depending on your sales cycle, right, and how long it takes for you to close a deal, sometimes takes weeks, months, right, to nurture a new marketing lead to become sales ready, right? And but once that happens, right, once that marketing to sales handoff happens, then we have to look at what's the conversion rate, right? So this is all about your sales process. What does that handoff look like? Is sales following up with that marketing lead in an appropriate timing, or is it falling through the cracks, or does it get unnoticed? All those things will introduce friction inside your revenue operations. There are things that we can do too with like scorecards, leaderboards, to incentivize sales performance, right? There are other tactics that you can do to convert at a higher rate as well, including like discounting, right, or offering incentives, right? It doesn't always have to be a discount. Like I personally, I'm not a huge fan of discounting. I'd rather give you more value than discount. But again, every business and every company is a little bit different. But you have to know like what are the triggers and levers and things that you can kind of pull to move the conversion rate. But usually when the sales process just comes down to responsiveness and diligence, right? And then there's also a quoting process involved typically, whether that be you create a quote or proposal or statement of work, right? Whatever you can do to streamline, make that process very standard, right, is going to support with your effective conversion rate. So those two elements, produce our customers. Now let's look at our revenue, right? When we look at our revenue formula, the first aspect of it is our average sales. So, we can influence this by increasing our prices, maybe through creation of like special offers. We can sell complementary products, so maybe cross-selling, right? All these items may, would impact our average sale price. And then the final aspect is our sales per period. So the other way to influence your revenue may be to sell more often, right? So, a product that you maybe would sell on an annual basis, see if there's a need or if there's a possibility to increase the frequency of that sale. So whether it could be quarterly, monthly, right? Or you could sell complementary products, right? Or sometimes for those who are like in a product business, you might offer services, right? So you might sell a product, but now you can wrap around that product and sell a service, or even vice versa. For service businesses, you might say, we can increase our sales per period through our service by offering a product, right? Those could be approaches to selling more per period, right? And this gets us to our revenue formula. So those are just some high-level concepts around our way to wealth, our revenue operations. Now I'm going to get into some more specifics around just like what is a CRM and how does it fit, who uses it within the business. So CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Management, is a tool that businesses use to track their prospects and customer interactions. Oftentimes, for companies starting out or new businesses, usually this information is going to live on Excel spreadsheets or on pieces of paper or in the owner's head or their voicemail box, email box, right? Those types of things. Because of this, usually this information is spread across a lot of different places in what we call data silos. So, your email box is a data silo. Your voicemail box is a data silo. Your website might be a data silo. All your social media platforms are data silos, right? Like, so now you have all these different texts and tools that you're trying to do to run your business. It could be your email marketing tools, MailChimp, your others, this and that, right? And all this data is living in different places. So when you try to discern and make sense of how our contacts interacting with our brand, it becomes really difficult. And so this is where the CRM, this is where it comes in. It comes in to become the source of truth for your business, right? The source of truth about your customers, your prospects, and gaining an understanding of how people are interacting with your brand, and what's working, what's not working, right? Without this information or without a CRM in place, it becomes really difficult to answer these questions. Like, for example, you want to know like who your customers are and how do you get in touch with them? How are they interacting with your content? All these things become really difficult to answer without the CRM in place. So this is what the CRM is intended to solve. There are a couple of key users for the CRM. Typically, it's B2B customers. So meaning a bit your business and you're selling to another business that's usually selling over a longer sales cycle. So it's not a transactional deal usually, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't need CRM if you're not in B2B space or if you have a transactional product. Chances are you still could find value of CRM, but the prime use case of a CRM is going to be a B2B company with a considered purchasing journey, meaning that someone is doing a lot of research, they're comparing competitors, they're kind of sitting on the fence, right? They're debating and checking references and referrals, from their trusted networks and peers to make a decision. That's usually what it looks like. And because of that, you want to have a CRM in place to understand how did people find you, where do they come from, what campaigns are working, what's not, and then also putting them into your pipeline, right? So that you can track who are those opportunities, when was the last time you followed up with them, when do you want to follow up with them next, what is the next state in this stage, or how do we continue to move these contacts and prospects through a sales funnel. In short, if you need a central place to maintain all the information about your prospects and customers, then a CRM is for you. If you're tired of hopping between different systems or logging into one place and logging in the other, or the famous like export from one place and export from another and put it all in Excel and try to make sense of it, right? All that stuff generally leads to madness. So instead, just put a CRM in place. It'll bring a lot more simplicity and connectedness inside your systems. There are a couple of key folks who benefit from the usage of a CRM. So first are going to be business owners, which are probably most of us here, right? What we benefit from is the centralized location of all of our information into one place, which means that we can gain better insights because we're able to put reporting and analytics and things in place to be able to monitor the health of our pipelines, the health of our email or marketing campaigns, the health of our retention of our customers, right? Having all that in one place makes it easier for us because now we don't have to hop between a bunch of different systems and tools and try to make sense of what's going on. Also, our sales teams will benefit. The sales teams benefits from being able to manage their pipeline, right? So they'll be able to use pipeline tools to manage their leads and make sure that leads aren't falling through the cracks. And then lastly, our customers are to benefit because they're delighted when the business interacts with them in a seamless experience, right? I'm sure we've all experienced some sort of company out there, and if you want to give them a shout out, please feel free to do so in chat. But I'm sure there's been some time where we've interacted with the company, and everything was seamless from the initial engagement from from their marketing efforts to the sales experience to even the customer delivery experience. When all that stuff is seamless, chances are it's because they have really great operational procedures set up across their marketing, sales, and service functions, which means that the marketing to sales handoff is really great, that sales to service handoff is really great, and no matter who you interacted with at the company, everyone was on the same page about where you're at, right? When we don't have that experience as a customer, especially in today's age where we kind of have this, we have as customers, we have high expectations, right, on the companies that we give our data to, right? And if we feel that there's a disconnect between something I said to the salesperson versus the person that's delivering the project, right? If there's a disconnect there, it's a dissatisfier, right? Because it shows that there's something was missed in the handoff, and then what that makes your customer end up doing is repeating information, right, or feeling like they weren't heard, right, and having to explain again, right, and so that's where CRM again, it becomes that central source of, well, what did the customer say? What did we promise as a sales team? What is service supposed to be doing, right? As we use a CRM for those functions, right, that it gives us a place to always refer back to understand where everything is at with all our prospects and customers, and make sure that things don't go missing or get missed, when we go through those key handoffs between marketing, sales, and service. All right. So there's a couple of use cases that I'm going to walk through in terms of influencing your way to wealth or your revenue operation. So one is going to be focused around feeding your CRM data, because that's basically the currency of CRM is information, is data. So if you have good data and lots of data going into it, then chances are you're going to get better insights and information. So, and revenue attribution. So we'll look at tactics and approaches to accomplishing that. Secondly, we're going to look at how do we experiment with our campaigns in a way that allows us to look at conversion rate optimization. So going back to the example of the HVAC company who was looking to maybe enhance their sales process, right, to optimize their conversion rate. We'll look at how you can experiment and optimize these different operational aspects of sales to increase your conversion rate optimization. And then lastly is around sales enablement. So let's get into these examples. So first is feeding your CRM, right? CRM wants data, which means that you have to use it, first of all. CRM, depending on which one you're using, they all generally have a learning curve, right? Especially if you haven't used a CRM before. So, if you've never used a CRM, then chances are it's going to take some time and some practice to get used to it. But once you habitualize the use of the CRM, right, it'll become your best your best buddy, right? In a way, it's going to know information that you're going to want. It's going to really support you and take the guesswork on what you should do next. What's the most valuable next thing I should do in my business to generate revenue? It should start to guide that for you, right? And how we do that is we give it a lot of data. And some of the data that we give here, and so what this graphic is showing here below is a revenue attribution report, which means, what were all the different touch points that happened from the initial engagement that we had with this prospect to closing and winning that deal and thus money, right? And so there's different attribution models. This is an example of one which looks at all the different interactions across the way. So your first touch with someone might have been that you were networking and you asked for a referral from a contact and they gave you a referral and you connected with them over the phone. That could be your first touch, right? And you go in your CRM and you say, yep, here's John Doe. I called him. Here are the notes of our call. That's your first touch, right? Then you might look at, well, how can I make this person a marketing lead for my sales team, right? Just having a phone conversation alone might not be enough to warrant it as a sales opportunity. You might want to see some other things happen first, like you might want to see some first interest on their side, of course, which can be that they went to your website, that they downloaded something, that they attended an event you invited them to, right? Again, there's lots of different ways to entice the bite, right? As we say in fishing. And so how do you entice the bite and make them a lead for your sales owner? And with that, but you're tracking that all along the way. So you initially had a phone call, then you offered them a white paper that was relevant to the problem that they might be facing, right? And they maybe went to your website and downloaded it. Well, now that's what we would call kind of like a lead. We created that lead. Now this is a lead for sales to follow up with, because we might say, yeah, whenever someone downloads a white paper on a website, that's a good opportunity for a salesperson to follow up and have a conversation with them. And then you track it, throughout the different kind of stages that are happening along here until you win that deal, right? And as you do this over time, and you're using a CRM to track all these different opportunities and make notes about, how they interacted and, the conversations that are happening, you'll be able to go back and look at your past 10, 20, 30 deals, however you want to do it, and start to actually look at the journey that your customers are taking. And with that, you'll be able to gain different types of insights about, like, where do our leads mostly come from? What are the things that are interacting with? You might even be able to compare, well, here are the ones that we won versus here are the ones that we lost. How's the journey different? Like all these ones that were lost, where was the leak? Where was and was there something that was inefficient about those engagements that didn't happen with these ones that we won, that would help you, gain insights and hypothesis around growth, right? And how you can increase your conversion rate. So that's our lead and revenue attribution model. Another really great way to feed your CRM, especially for those CRMs that are connected to your website, and most CRMs will connect to your website. So that way, when you like download a form or interact in some way and exchange information on the website, that information should go into a CRM, right? If you have a website right now, a business website, and you have a form, and that form, if people submit that form, and that form goes to your email, and then you're using your email as a to-do list to follow up with that person, chances are there are some inefficiencies with that. Now, I don't want to call you out too hard on that, but like that's where chances are, if you connect that with CRM and instead your information flows into a CRM, you usually can do a lot of really neat things with a CRM to say, okay, well, this lead was generated from our website. Anyone who fills out this form maybe gets an automatic response from the CRM that says, hey, thanks for downloading this thing, and maybe then puts them into a nurturing workflow that drips content to them over the next 4 weeks, for example, right? How do we get people there to begin with, though? Is through search engine optimization, or SEO, right? These are a couple of examples of different like heat maps and approaches through tools that we use for SEO to increase people's rankings in these keyword terms. So if your business is a geographically based business, so if you're a chiropractor, for example, that's what we have here in this example, well, your customers are going to be around your office, right? Like no one generally is going to be driving more than a couple of hours away to go for a chiropractor visit, right? And so those companies that are geographically based, right, SEO is key for them, because people, especially if they're searching, or if your customers or prospects are going to Google and searching for whatever your service is, and then near me, if they're typing chiropractor near me, right, mechanic near me, event planner near me, right, whatever it might be, search engine optimization, especially your ranking, people search for those near me type terms is super key, because this is going to feed like leads to your website and thus your CRM, right, which means more information, more data. All right, I see another question from Nicole, so we're going to pause on here and address the question. So as a solopreneur, what's the ideal time frame for offering a touch point to a prospect to maintain engagement without being too pushy? Right away. And so, and I think let's define what prospect is. If someone has reached out to you, right, there's a lot of studies and a lot of science shows that like faster the follow-up, the higher the chance that you're going to have, and successfully moving forward the engagement. And this could be that they followed up with you and say they emailed you or they called you, right? Like the responsiveness is key in these situations. Now, additionally, with the some of the examples that I given before, let's say someone came to your website and you had your CRM pixel. So there's like usually like a snippet of code that your CRM will give you. You'll put it on your website. This pixel develops a cookie, and I'm sorry, I'm getting really technical, but it basically allows for you to be tracked, or allows for that visitor to be tracked on your website. So usually what's happening is, prospect goes to a website, downloads an ebook, reads the ebook, weekend comes, they're at the beach, they're not worried about work. Monday rolls around and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot I downloaded this thing. I'm going to go back to their website and poke around a little more, right? usually through that initial conversion process where they downloaded your ebook, usually it gives a cookie on your browser, right? And with that, when they come back on Monday and they go back to your website and they start poking around again, your CRM can actually notify you and say, hey, this person viewed this page, they viewed that page, they went there, they went there. And you'll actually be able to see a timeline of the different pages that they started to interact with. That is a very opportune time to follow up with someone. If someone's actually on your website looking at the things and you're getting notified, I would call them right away and say, hey, you don't want to be creepy and be like, notice you're on my website looking around. That's not going to go over well. But what will is just going to be like, hey, I noticed you engaged and just wanted to follow up, right? You want it to be, you want to come off authentic, of course, right? I'm not asking you to lie, but no one really wants to know that they're being watched at the end of the day. But these tools are watching you; they're everywhere, right? And so we have to do it in a delicate way. But the studies show that if you can actually respond to people in a quick manner when they're interacting on your website, you're just you're top of mind for them, especially if they have busy days and they're trying to do all these different stuff. If you can get them during the window that they're actually engaging with your website and your product, that is super key. All right, super. Okay, folks, moving on to the next one, and now we're going to look at conversion rate optimization. So how do we their conversion rates, which is all All right, I apologize about that. I think my all right. So hopefully you can still hear me. I think one of my Bluetooth headsets got kicked on and it took over for a second. Okay. All right. So the conversion rate optimization, one thing we can do around there is to look at, experiment, right? And optimize experiments so that we can understand A versus B, which is better, right? So for that confused, concerned CEO who's not really sure what's working, what's not working, well, then experiment, right? We kind of have to go back to like high school science, right? And develop a hypothesis and then like develop our control experiment and then actually modify your experiment a little bit and say, okay, well, I'm going to make 2 email campaigns. One's going to be black text on a white background, and one's going to be white text on a black background. Now, I'm not actually suggesting this, but I just want to illustrate the point, right? That by changing elements of one campaign or the other, we can start to experiment and get a sense one approach more efficient or more effective than the other. I see a couple of questions here around CRMs that I recommend, free and easy to use. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I'm a HubSpot solution partner. Most of my experience and expertise is in that area, so I definitely recommend them. They also have a free tool, which is nice. So you can get on their free tools, super easy to set up. You'll be like set up and going like 5-10 minutes, pretty much. It's just like a bare bones, database free to work with. Now, there is some learning curve and some training, and they have a really great academy, library of courses and certifications and things that you can get to speed yourself through that learning curve. And now there's a lot of other ones that are out there too, right? Especially around the score community, like Zoho is another very popular one. It tends to be really popular because its paid versions are typically not as expensive as HubSpot. Like if you put HubSpot and Zoho together, usually you'll spend less on Zoho. Now, you can't just take everything at cash value alone, because the features are different, the benefits are different. So every situation is unique, right? And so what I would recommend is ask your peers, people in your network, see what they're using, take my recommendations as well, come up with maybe a short list, right, of 2 to 3 CRMs that are shortlisted, right, and get demos from them. They might be pre-recorded demos, or maybe they can be live demos. Try to sign up for some free versions. Try them out first, right? Like see, because there might be an interface that you prefer more than the other, or maybe there's one feature that you really value that's in one CRM, but it's not in another one, right? And And so those are some recommendations I would give around how to select a CRM. But I would at the end of the day though, HubSpot, Zoho, especially for very small businesses, and then look, there's dozens of others that I'm leaving off the list. But another thing you might want to look at is there a CRM that's specific to your industry, right? So especially for like realtors and like insurance brokers, usually you're getting the CRM from your broker in those cases. But sometimes, even if you're an agent who gets a CRM for your broker, sometimes you still might want your own CRM. Like I've seen this done before because they want to be able to kind of maintain their own data in case they choose to leave the broker, right? And so, there's different approaches that you can take to find out what might be the best CRM for you. All right. So when we look at conversion rate optimization, one example of how we can experiment and see if there's any difference with our conversion rate is to provide, is to change one element of something. So if you look at these two different pop-ups that were on a website, right? One pop-up offered a discount code, and one offered the same discount code, but instead it just had a timer on it, just countdown timer, 15 minutes, right? At the end of the day, we saw an increase of 7.97% on the conversion rate of people to take on this offer, right? Because of this countdown, right? Because the countdown timer, right, instills a sense of urgency, right? And so if your audience gets motivated when there's a sense of urgency, well, then something like a countdown timer might be a good approach to do it. Now, that in some industries, it might not make sense for like a large scale $20,000 service deal, a countdown timer might not make a lot of sense, right? And in fact, it might have the opposite effect for your audience, right? But for like B2C transactional or low transactional B2B type customers, like if you're just selling like a $20 a month subscription or something like that, countdown timers can be very appropriate and very effective in moving the conversion rate. Again, this is just one example. But to think about conversion rate optimization, just think about what you want, what you might want to experiment and see. Develop a hypothesis and say, well, will a countdown timer instilling a sense of urgency increase our conversion rate, right? And build a test or build a way to compare these, right? Build your control, build your experiment, and be able to look at the any difference there to see if there's any significance, right, and the results that we're seeing that might indicate that this in fact does motivate people or does have an influence on your conversion rate. All right. And then one other area to enable our revenue operations on our sales team is to give our sales teams more tools to sell. This is a screenshot from HubSpot, but what you're seeing here is a demo follow-up, right? And this is actually a tool called Sequences, which allows you to build out multiple emails in a sequence and to have those emails keep getting sent out until either a reply happens or if they book time with you. So in this demo follow-up, the salesperson has done the demo, and now they're in between the state between after the demo and maybe the customer hasn't requested a proposal yet, or they're kind of still on the fence and they're waiting, right? They're still considering. They're gonna deliberate it and debrief it with their team, et cetera, right? During that time, we want to keep nurturing. We want to stay top of mind. So using tools like this sequence tool would allow you to develop these different templates to do a post follow-up and keep following up, right? Until again, there's a reply or if someone schedules a meeting with you. This is going to support you and your RevOps and your sales teams, because now your sales team your sales member, or you, if you're the salesperson in your company, you don't have to manually do this every day, right? You just set it up once and it will just keep doing it until they reply or schedule a meeting with you. So you don't have to like do this mental dexterity check on like, when was the last time I followed up with Bob? Or, like, when did we do the demo with them, or when do we present, right? And like, should I do it again? And then we get into the whole like, oh, am I being too pushy, right, Nicole, right? Am I being too pushy if I follow up again? Am I whatever, right? And all these considerations start to flood our mind, right? And it slows us down. That's a bottleneck. It's friction, right? So by setting up these systems ahead of time, you just say, "Yep, I'm just going to enroll them this in this sequence. I do this for everyone I have a demo with. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, right? I just put them in the sequence." One, you're standardizing your approach and your processes, and with that, you're going to get better data and information, right? And make sure that these things get nurtured and followed up with. Here's another example of a email template, right? Um, this might be again a part of a sequence of emails that you might send out to folks. This again is a HubSpot screenshot. It also includes tools like a schedule a meeting tool. So like if you're using Calendly to do meetings with folks, and there's a lot of other calendar tools, but again, that's another data silo. So tools like HubSpot, and there's other CRMs. I'm pretty sure Zoho has like a meeting scheduler tool as well. Usually we'll have these meeting scheduler tools. So if your sales team is driven by meetings, or if you want to book more meetings, right, having these integrated meeting tools is going to be really valuable because again, when they book the meeting, all that information is going to flow into your CRM. It's going to come onto your calendar, and you're going to be able to see that all in that contact record. This is how like a HubSpot sequence might look like on a high level, right? You might reach out to someone and send them what we would call like a welcome email, right? Something that's just your initial contact, right? Then you might connect with them on LinkedIn. Then you might follow up with another email and provide some helpful type of content. Then you might give yourself a task to call the contact, the prospect, right? And then send another email for social proof, right? Say, here's a case study of something that we've done in this space, right? And then you move through this process, and eventually we have this breakup email, which is basically just signaling to the prospect that you're not going to email them anymore, and that you're kind of wrapping up your outreach. Those, if you have a really good breakup email, that's the one that typically people will respond to, right? They might not respond to all the other earlier stuff, but once they hear that you're not going to be emailing anymore, and then you're kind of wrapping up the outreach and you're kind of moving on, with an effectively written breakup email, we can see replies increase typically 10% on just that email alone. And usually after you run the sequence enough, right, and you want to analyze the sequence. So you want to see how people are interacting. Are they replying to your earlier emails, right? How are they engaging? How are they responding? Optimizing this type of sequence, again, will support with your revenue operations. Here's another look into a HubSpot CRM dashboard, right? So a lot of key components of a CRM tool would be also to like have reports and data and dashboards for you to look at. And this shows, like based on how many visits we had to our website, what the conversion rate of those visits to contacts is. So, do people fill out a form, provide some information, and then ultimately of those contacts that came in through your website and fill out a form, how many of those became customers? And typically this is done by, creating like a deal for that contact and winning that deal. And again, that all happens, within the CRM. And with this, you're able to get conversion rates, right? So going back to our way to wealth formula, and in our conversion rate optimization, right? We would say, wow, well, we're actually doing really good between our visits to contacts. We generate leads really well. But why are we just, is one customer out of 84 leads contacts appropriate? Is a 1% conversion rate there effective? Or is this a leaky part of our business, right? And so if I were to look at this and I would say, well, is it practical, realistic for us to move from one customer to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, right? To actually increase that customer acquisition rate. A lot of things drive this, like, industry trends, standards, best practices, benchmarks, right? So, but that's one place that I would look for in this type of chart. CRMs so will give an idea of what our pipeline looks like and even forecast our deal. We can say, okay, well, you know what, I have $23,000 in our pipeline. I've closed 2.5 of that. I have presentations scheduled with about $10,000 worth. I have about $8,000 in qualified to buy, right? It's going to give you a sense of where people are at in your pipeline. This is typically really important for those complicated, highly considered sales journeys for your customers, right? So if you have multiple stages, multiple meetings and things that kind of happen, in order to sell a deal, having this type of deal forecast is uh, very important. This is also another tool within uh, HubSpot, where if you're using the pipeline tools you set different stages in your deal pipeline. So for example, we we have appointments set with 28 of those. We completed the appointment with 6. The buyer's journey is continuing with 3. We're working an upgrade on 1, and we closed 1 and lost 1, right? So with this, we're able to see the conversion rate down this funnel. And from that, we're also able to see, again, like leaks or any kind of like sudden drops, right? Like, why are we going like from 28 to 6, right? Why are only 21%, moving through into the next stage? Is something going on there, right? So again, just gives us more data to look at. And then also this pipeline waterfall report is a nice way to be able to visualize just how much money is coming into our pipeline, how much money moves out of it, and that way we can kind of get a sense of, is our pipeline growing or is it shrinking, right? That's going to be helpful for us to be able to react and try to change the course, right? If we find that our pipeline is shrinking, as an example. All right, great. Well, actually, it went a little bit longer than I expected, I think, on this one, or maybe we were just right on time. Actually, we were just right on time. So, again, this is it's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm happy to answer and hang out for any kind of Q&A and more questions. It's just like if you have any like more questions on CRM or if any kind of follow-up activities, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or through this connection QR code. And Olivia, I think, do you have any other last remarks you want to share about surveys and other things, right?
Yes, in addition to receiving the recording, you should get a link to a survey as well, just asking you your thoughts on this webinar and the other webinars we've provided. Nothing bad about those, of course, please don't include those, but we just like to know what you think so that we can better plan our programming. I'm sure you understand, especially if you're all business owners and you watch the webinar. Lewis, I'm not seeing any other questions. Are you?
Let's see here. Oh, I see a couple in the Q&A section here. So, all right. So, yep, they just came in fact. So what are the weaknesses of something like Go High Level that is an all-in-one tool? What are the reasons it would probably be best to not use this with its CRM sub tool? Okay. Yeah. Really good question. So yes, Go High Level is another CRM tool. And just so I'm transparent with my own experience, I've worked with Go High Level in a project where we actually integrated Go High Level and HubSpot together. So we were like sending data back and forth, and it was a complex integration, but we were able to pull it off so that like leads were being generated in Go High Level and they were being funneled into HubSpot. It was a whole thing. But what I would say, just in general, I don't have any like specific to say like good or bad about Go High Level. But what I would say is, because my experience in it specifically was pretty limited. But what I would look at is, again, what are the key features that you're looking to get from it? I would look at key features, and then I would also look at the community, right? Like when you look at these tools, right? Um, there's a learning curve involved. So how easy is it for you to pick up the tool? What I found personally, and what I've seen a lot with a lot of the companies that we worked with, is that the learning curve with HubSpot tends to be a lot less than with others, because whether it's just that the user interface is very intuitive, maybe that they have, it's also because they have a really great academy resources, and and if you're searching any kind of like marketing or sales related question, I swear I'm always getting articles from HubSpot about how to do something, right? So you can tell that they're nurturing their community with a lot of great information, right? And so I would look at, one, do you like using the tool? Like, is it easy to navigate, use, and try to discern that, through demos and maybe even trying to get like a free version for yourself to work with. But also look at like, what is the learning curve for you and for your team going to look like, right? And is it going to be easy for other people to pick up on? There are definitely some tools out there that I've seen frustrated CEOs with because they're hard to use, they don't integrate well, they have quirky glitches and things that happen, and all that's not great, right? That's all going to introduce frustration and friction inside your revenue operation processes. uh, so I mean that's not a vouch for any one tool in particular, but I would recommend just go in knowing exactly what you're looking for, like what features, benefits does the tool provide, those how well does it provide it, how does the learning curve feel to you, are there good resources out there to support in your learning and adoption of the tool as well. Okay, another question. Um, do I offer a discount for HubSpot? So great question. I have had like thousands of pricing conversations, and so as a solution partner, we are we sell with HubSpot. We co-sell. So typically, when there's a prospect that is interested in HubSpot, we'll approach HubSpot and say, "Hey, this is customer X, or this prospect that we're working with." And then we'll usually discover what your use case is. Like, what are you hoping to get with HubSpot? What features and tools? I don't have like a discount code. They don't do it like that. But what we typically do is, we'll negotiate like with our HubSpot reps to see like, one, we'll do that to determine what is the proper package for you that you need, because with HubSpot, there's they have a lot of hubs. So they have like marketing hub, sales hub, service hub, ops hub, CMS hub. You don't need to know all that right now, but just know that and each one of those has a starter, pro, enterprise level. So all of a sudden the complexity of this packaging becomes complex because it's a huge tool, right? And so that's just how they decided to kind of price out their tools. Different CRMs might have different pricing models. They might just have a model where it's just a per user, you get it all kind of thing, right? Some they might piecemeal different things out, right? But typically what we'll do is we'll work with our prospects to kind of determine what's the right package for you. And then we'll go to, HubSpot and say, hey, this is who we have. This is what their challenges are. This is what they're looking for, try to fit the right package at the right price, for them as well. Okay. So next question around bootstrap budget. Yeah, totally familiar with that. Yeah, so the question is around, would it make sense or not to start with HubSpot free and then transfer to another CRM down the line, alternatives? Yeah, really great question, right? Because what you'll notice about HubSpot, and this is the case with a lot of software out in the world, right, is like, yeah, there's usually a freemium model. And then, typically you might get onto another level of the software where, and HubSpot, you might spend anywhere from 50 to a couple $100 a month, right? Depending on your package. But then, you could easily go, there's companies that spend $10,000 a month on HubSpot, and that's because they have hundreds of thousands of contacts and they're doing like a tremendous amount of emails, or they have 100 users in the tool. And so it scales up pretty fast in terms of the pricing, where other CRMs again might not scale up that quickly, right? And I have seen people be a bit skeptical about stepping in all the way into the HubSpot ecosystem because they think that they're going to have to spend a ton of money down the road, right? And so that's where I think seeing, like, again, understanding the different kind of pricing models, what does freemium get you? What is that first step, which is what they call starter edition? What would that get you? And then, is there anything that on the more expensive models that you like definitely want to have, that, that you maybe want to grow into, or at least know ahead of time, yeah, it's going to scale up to this, but hopefully along the way you're getting ROI, right? I mean, that's a great way to justify it, is to say, well, we brought in this tool because we wanted to increase our conversion rate, which we did. Now we want to reinvest, our increased revenue gain back into our tools to keep fueling the growth, right? That's an ideal situation, right? But there are times, right, and I've seen it, where we have to move people off the CRM and HubSpot, and it could be any CRM. We've helped people do lots of migrations, mostly to HubSpot, sometimes away. But then with that, right, you want to be able to understand what data can you get Because with any SaaS platform, when you try to decommission and get rid of it, chances are you're not going to get like all that data. You might get some of it. You might get like what we would call like property information. So yes, you can export your contacts, you can export your companies, you can export your deals. All that stuff is pretty straightforward for a user to go in and just say export all of my information. What becomes a little bit more challenging, like say you use HubSpot for a year and you had all this tracking information, you had all this information about who, Prospect X downloaded a form, they went to all these pages, all these notes that are within the law. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that information, that very detailed information, isn't easily exportable, right? We have to use like APIs and other tools to be able to get that information. So if a big company is coming to us and saying, hey, we've used HubSpot for 3 years and we want every single piece of information out of it, well, it's actually kind of a laborious task because we have to use APIs and other integrations to kind of get at that deeper layer of data so you don't leave anything on the table. So that's probably another really good consideration to make when looking at your CRM decision is, um, what is the risk of data loss if we choose to go somewhere else, right? Like, what can I bring with me? What's going to be difficult to get out of the system, and what might I have to give up, if I do change to CRMs down the line? Okay, cool. T. Nelson, I see your question. Pros and cons CRMs that are self-hosted, such as systems like Civi CRM versus cloud-based CRMs like Zoho. So I think I haven't done a whole bunch of like, self-hosted systems. The one thing I typically like, what comes to mind right away is just integrations. Is chances are your cloud-based CRMs like HubSpot and Zoho are going to have like a more robust integration tool set because they're cloud based and they're connecting to other tools within the cloud. So if you want to connect your like HubSpot to QuickBooks and then you want to connect it to PandaDoc or your DocuSign for document signing, typically these cloud-based solutions are going to be easier to integrate with other tools within the cloud, where I've found that self-hosted or like desktop applications, right, typically don't integrate in that way. So again, you end up kind of with another data silo, right? You have a system on your computer, and if it's like just on one computer and now you have a growing team and you're trying to share this system with other people on your team, like it seems like it could get trickier, unless there's ways to share it, right? But those are just some of the things that kind of come to mind around self-hosted versus cloud-based. Cool. Oh, we got lots of questions now. So Zapier, let's see here. Okay, so Zapier in the context of CRM is that, okay, so this kind of goes back to our integration question. So with tools like HubSpot, Zoho, right, you can look at their off-the-shelf or what I would call native integrations. What are these integrations that are like one-click install, simple to install stuff, right? Like, for example, HubSpot has a really great integration with QuickBooks. So if you want to sync invoices, your products back and forth. That way your sales team could see invoices from your customers in HubSpot and not have to have access to QuickBooks, to see it all, right? And you don't want to give them access to all the finances, but you may want to have your salespeople to be able to see invoices or other kind of QuickBooks information within HubSpot, right? So that's one. Native integration is great. Where sometimes native integrations don't exist, you might need a tool like Zapier to integrate these tools, and that we definitely use Zapier. It's a great tool. I love it actually, and we do things where we've connected source systems that didn't have a native integration or like a really simple integration that we could connect the tool into HubSpot. We use Zapier. Again, you're kind of limited based on what's available in Zapier too, right? Because there's only so many triggers and there's only so many different kind of actions you can take. And so you always want to kind of just check it out first and see what's available before, taking the full plunge into Zapier. But if it can do what you want, it's great. Where neither a Zapier or a native integration exists, sometimes there's a possibility for custom integrations, but chances are it's not for this group, because usually when we get into custom API integrations and we're talking about, hundreds of hours of a developer, to develop a custom integration. But if it's like very foundational to your business and it would make a huge difference, then it could be worth it, right? And we've done a lot of custom integrations where we've taken, data out of one system and just move it into another through like an application. Okay. All right. Um, let's see here. So, are you able to assist with CRM setup with HubSpot? Yeah, and we can certainly have a conversation. I'm happy to support and guide you on like what are the best approaches. We do work with folks on the HubSpot platform. Inside my contacts as a score mentor, I can guide you on what would be some of the best approaches there. So again, feel free to um, connect with me or on LinkedIn or through this QR code. We can certainly take on that conversation. And then, okay, another question here. Have you noticed certain CRMs not allowing for full migration? Yeah, definitely. And that's a huge. Uh, let's see here. I want to make sure I understand this full question. Or allow for full migration, but happens with more hiccups and probable issues for the one exporting from one CRM to another. Yeah, migrations are always tricky because migrations are like a data project, right? And so whenever we get into like data projects, there's always complexity with the quality of the data. Does it have the right formatting? What are the data types? What's flowing from one system to the other? It isn't always a very straightforward process. You actually typically want to have someone who is really thoughtful about just data work in general to support with the exporting, the importing, and the eventual migration of those elements. I think usually the surprise for business owners or anyone who's trying to get into these projects is just like, what data can you move, right? Usually there's a bit of a surprise and like, oh, I can't move this or I can't move that. And usually there needs to be some sort of workaround or approach enabled to make that work. There are tools. There actually are like CRM migration tools, like third-party tools that are out there. If you just search like, this system to that system migration, you might find other third-party tools or, companies that would provide more like a white glove kind of migration process. Okay, great question. Thank you. And another question. Let's see. Okay, would seem having a CRM that has all the native integrations or using something like Zapier would increase our data and accounts exposure. In the event one gets hacked, we could have multiple cybersecurity scenarios because of the backdoor access. If I know, yeah, definitely not a cybersecurity expert, but talk about how to de-risk. So yeah, I mean I think that's a very valid question, and yeah, I think we just kind of go back to just security kind of probably foundations, just like using strong passwords, not sharing those passwords, using um yeah, I think I haven't personally heard of like a data breach, with like Zapier tools and other things like that, but I think those are really important to have, and we've seen data breaches happen quite often lately, right? So I think it's really important to know what's on top of to keep that on top of mind. You can also look at usually websites will have like a what do they call it? Like a kind of like a security. I'm trying. The name is blanking on me, but it's like a security protocol that you can typically go and search and make sure that they're compliant, with different security standards. And so they're if you search on the different tools like Zapier, HubSpot, Zoho, etc., right, you can also do some research into what they're doing to ensure that they're keeping their systems secure and safe and preventing those risks from happening. But I don't know that there's anything like extra that can be done other than just maintain secure passwords, change them frequently, make them complex, and don't share them, right? And that will at least be a good start to de-risking yourself. But then also just you can, if you want to see, is this tool trustworthy, right? Doing diligent research up front to you see what kind of are there different security protocols that they're following at their organization or within the software. Okay, really great questions. Cool. I think that's it. Did we get all the questions, Olivia?
I think we're good, and we are past our time too, so I don't want to
Yeah.
keep you more than what we've allotted for. I know it's lunchtime and you have a company to run, so don't forget, everyone, you'll receive a copy of the recording with Lewis's contact information. You can scan that QR code as well, but you'll receive his contact information if you want to reach back out to ask any more questions. But thank you very much, Lewis. This was fantastic. Lots of great comments in the chat too. You should check those out.
Yes.
thanking
That
you.
does.
So
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much for your time.
You got
Um,
it.
this was a
Bye,
great one.
everyone.